Well, welcome to the TRAPLINE today. Always brought to you by thetrappermag.com. Make sure if you're looking for a great trapping magazine, make sure you stop by thetrappermag.com and get yourself a subscription. We got a great guest today. Jason Wisniewski is the president of the Fur Takers of America. I actually just saw him yesterday. We spent 3 days out in Spencer, Iowa. The Fur Takers Association put on a fantastic just a really good rendezvous. There was a great crowd there for him. I was really happy. I know that Jason, his whole team, Mike Mazur, a bunch of people really put a lot of work into that, and it was a fantastic event. And welcome to the podcast. How are you today, sir?
I am doing great. Thank you for having me. And yeah, the team did a great job. I think about that, and it was really encouraging to see, especially with the way everything is, down markets, everything. We always wonder how big of a turnout we're going to have, but it was just a great event. And Mike and Carrie Mazur just did an outstanding job, and all the volunteers in Iowa. And just hats off to them. I told everybody, I said I was just smart enough to stay the heck out of the way.
Well, sometimes that's our best attribute as people, just stay out of the way and let it happen. That's actually a really good good answer. That just tell us, since we are on the subject of your convention, overall synopsis. I'm sure that you guys were very happy with how everything transpired and moved forward.
Oh, absolutely. It was such a great turnout. We were actually in danger last year of not even having a convention this year. They're getting harder to find places to hold them and volunteers to do the work. And Mike and Carrie kind of volunteered to do it. They took it on themselves where, generally we have a chapter and affiliate do it. And, they just, Mike, he was probably on the phone with me 2 to 3 times a week all through the year, getting everything set up. And, everybody I talked to was just ecstatic how well it was. Some folks said it was probably the best FTA convention they've been to since the fur boom, which is,
that's a while ago.
That's a long time ago. And I was only a few years old then. And, so all the vendors just had nothing but great stuff to say. And, everybody was there, people attending. It was really awesome. I think they had a great time. I know the FTA booth alone, I know we got a ton of new memberships and, some merchandise sales and all that. Really, the memberships is really, really great to see because, there's a lot of research that's been done recently that's shown that memberships in our national organization is really fairly low compared to the number of trappers that are out there. So that's encouraging to see more people want to become members and really get in on the fight with everything we're doing to try to promote, protect trapping across the country.
Absolutely, absolutely, and you guys are doing a great job. Any organization that is trying, in my mind, is trying to promote trapping is a good thing in this day and age. And you guys do a lot of that, and you do a lot of things behind the scenes as well. And we're going to get into that and give you a chance to elaborate on, the things that you do as far as helping out with, legislation, the bills that, are put forth. But before we get into that, I just wanted to, are you looking to run a line this year? Are you going to be out trapping some down in Alabama?
Oh, definitely. We live, luckily, I'm fortunate that I can just go out the back door and pretty much run a line bigger than what probably most people get a chance to run. But, we live on my wife's family farm and, probably, I guess we've been married 10 years, probably about 10 or 12 years now. I've been hitting it pretty hard trying to manage the populations of the fur bears. We certainly, in the South, we don't have many fox left, but we have a ton of coyotes. And actually, some of the recent research has really shown that in the last, 10 to 15 years, coyotes have been one of the number one species that people have been trapping. That changed from fox and coons and everything else. And I imagine the raccoons are probably getting more of interest because of the nest predation, nest grader stuff. So, I go out and, try to keep all those numbers in check. And I have a pretty unique strategy, I think, that has really worked well to keep the coyote numbers certainly in check. And we really don't see hardly any anymore. And the other cool thing a lot of people don't realize is that, when you have lots of coyotes, you generally don't have many red fox. And the last few years, on top of not seeing much coyote sign, we've seen a lot more red fox around the farms. That's been very encouraging as well.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things when the coyotes move into an area, they don't just chase them off; they kill them. The coyotes will run them down. I think that is a big factor in some of those, quote unquote red fox belts. I actually live in Pennsylvania, and the guys in that southern part of the state, they're just not seeing and having as much success with those red fox like they used to. And I think a direct correlation to that is the coyote numbers that we're getting throughout not just Pennsylvania, but like you said, Alabama, the United States in general. They're just there, and the foxes just don't have a chance. It's a bigger dominant predator. It'd be like a black bear trying to go into a grizzly's territory and surviving. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. I'm similar to you. I grew up in the southwest part of Pennsylvania, and that's what I mean. Red fox is my favorite species by far. I love to trap them. I love to see them. I love the smell of them when you get them. I think they just have such a beautiful smell, and it really goes back to when I was a kid. Even I think first experiences I had with trapping or anything related was I was helping one of the neighbors turn some fox hides, and that smell today takes me back to when I was 5 years old.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
But yeah, I was always used to trapping up there, and then when I moved south, the coyotes have been here probably about the last 30 to 40 years. I guess they started moving in, and now they're everywhere. I can't hardly go out deer hunting without seeing one.
Yeah.
Usually, certainly when I'm turkey hunting, they're usually stalking me as I'm calling. So they're pretty thick down here.
That reminds me of a story. If we bring my dad, anytime I can bring my dad into the equation, I'm always going to. That brings me to a couple stories that he would tell me, and I'll make them quick. He was sitting there, and my dad hunted turkeys a lot like he hunted deer. He'd set a blind up, and about every half hour, beep, 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 and then he wouldn't do anything for a half hour, and then another half hour, beep, 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 beep. And he would sit there, and those predators, whether it's a bobcat, a coyote, a fox, it doesn't matter. They hear something, that's their house. I mean, like you hearing something in your upstairs left bedroom, you know exactly where that sound came from. So they hear that, and then they stalk in, they work downwind, whatever they're doing. Numerous times he would call me, be like, I didn't see any turkeys, but boy, that big old beautiful bobcat came in. He walked across the log. You should have had your camera here. And he's had coyotes come in. He had a coyote come in and run right at the head decoy and take it out, all those different things. So that's pretty interesting. Going back to what you were saying, you said you have hopefully you can elaborate, and I'll give you a chance to. You said that, when you're trapping down Alabama, you feel that you got a pretty good system to where you're handling the coyotes pretty good. What are you doing possibly that's maybe different than some other guys, or maybe you could tell them when they're out in the field to maybe help them as time moves forward?
Certainly, and it's something that I started thinking about several years ago, and I guess it was sort of, how a lot of stuff we do, we stumble upon it by accident, and it makes some sense in what we see. And it was really during COVID, whenever everything was shut down, it was harder to go to work and everything. So my wife and I at that time, we said, well, we were living in Tennessee, and we both worked for a wildlife agency up there, and we really couldn't report, and everything was kind of shut down in his first couple months. So I went down and we stayed at the farm for a few weeks, and it had just happened to be trapping season. So I said, okay, I'm going to go out and trap here in mid-February, which normally I'd like to do it. I usually start right around New Year's after everybody's mainly done deer hunting. And so I was out there in February and ran my line. I caught, I don't know, probably in a couple of days, I caught 15 or 20 coyotes, and got them out of there. And then next year, I didn't notice near as much sign in the summer. And I said, I'm going to try that again this year. And really, my thoughts on it and I got to asking one of the leading coyote researchers there in the country about it at the NWTF convention after one of your talks a few years ago, and he had said, about my strategy. Like I told him, I said I'm trying to go in the middle of the breeding season for the coyotes, with the expectation of trying to catch those dominant pairs that are the ones that are having the pups. And if I could break up that breeding cycle for the year, then they don't have pups to feed all summer long, and they're not going to be having to prey upon, all of our, turkeys, deer, anything like that. It seems to have really worked because now I almost predominantly get youngins, a couple, we'll get some bigger ones, but they're not, it used to be probably the average size adult I would get was probably 35 to 39 pounds. Now, if I can catch a 35 pounder, that's pretty outstanding. So I think it's a lot of the younger ones that are moving in. And of course, we all know as soon as you take one out, all the research has shown that they're back in there probably within a couple of days. But, to build that breeding cycle again, or the mate up again, when you take out the dominant male or female or both, it may take two or more weeks. And, they're really only in that breeding cycle for about a month. So if you can break that up and stop that breeding for the year, then, whenever they're feeding pups, that's whenever they're going to be, having the greatest impact on game species, livestock, everything else. So.
Yeah, that's a fantastic, answer. And for anybody out there that's watching this, instituting that in that breeding process will make a difference. Absolutely. That's, you're not doing anything different to catch them. You're just catching them at a different time.
Yeah, and taking advantage of that breeding too. It's a lot easier to get the doubles whenever they're paired up like that. So you get some good glandlers out there and set them up to. That's what I always say. We get a lot of rain that time of year too, so you're always fighting the weather, and it's kind of like the heat right now. You can't do anything.
Yeah, you can't do anything about that in the middle of July or late July. That's always big fun.
Yep.
What are some things that the FTA is working on right now that is your path forward per se? What's the FTA working on that is you guys do a great job. Pretty much everything you do is going to be promoting trapping and the tradition and the lifestyle. But what are maybe some specifics that you're working on as an organization moving forward?
Yeah, there's, of course, the legislation is always a big issue every year. A lot of people don't realize that in general across the country, you probably have between 15 and 30 bills, whether most of them are at the state level, occasionally some are at the federal level, and we do a lot with them. This year was fortunate. We didn't have a whole lot out there. The biggest one was in Oregon where there was it was a public land beaver trapping bill that basically would prohibit beaver trapping on public land. There's a lot of more information that went into that bill. And unfortunately, the folks in Oregon,
I believe we lost that. Yeah.
To trap beavers on public lands, but that's something that's coming for a number of other states. There's already been beaver working groups in several. I think maybe Wisconsin and Minnesota. I know Colorado has one as well. And I think now that some of these groups have gotten that victory over in Oregon, they're going to use that as the kind of the example to follow. And it's really critical that we try to, now that we know that's there, one of the big problems we always have with legislation is the hearings tomorrow at 8:00 and somebody calls us at 6:00 this evening to see if we can't write something. And we're always on our heels. And, one of the analogies I like to use, I grew up, of course, growing up in Pennsylvania, many people wrestled, played football, all that. We didn't start training the day before the first match. We started months earlier, whether it be working out in the gym, doing everything. And we need to get to that as an whole industry, actually, make our names known to these legislators in the summer months all year long, so they know if there's a trapping thing, they can come right to us. They know who we are. We're not, all of a sudden being quiet all year long and then trying to raise attention at the last minute. So,
Absolutely.
trying to encourage a lot of our folks to get active. We have our state sportsmen's caucuses, which are the legislators that really represent the sportsmen in each state. Every state in the union has a caucus, and I'm trying to encourage all of our folks to get out there and meet with their folks. Build relationships, because from relationships comes partnerships, and that's a really important thing that I think we've kind of maybe not done very well on the last maybe 20 years or so.
I can agree with that. I actually have a really good relationship with my ex-wife. She's actually a state rep in Pennsylvania, like in Harrisburg, in the capital. She's one of the state representatives, and she's a Democrat, and that's probably one of the reasons why we're still not married. But with that, she calls me anytime something hits the floor and asks me my opinion to help her. Now, even though she's a Democrat, she votes her conscience on a lot of these issues. She's pro-Second Amendment, which is rare for that side of the aisle. But we just recently in Pennsylvania had something go to the floor that was about Sunday hunting. And we hadn't had Sunday hunting except for maybe a couple days. And she reached out to me and I said, yes. I said, this is why I think it's good. And I always give her a reason. So she keeps me aware of anything that's dealing with, animals, animal husbandry, hunting, trapping, fishing. She keeps me aware of that and asks me my opinion, which is nice. But the other thing on the other flip side of that is what you were talking about in Oregon. And as you're well aware, they outlawed the beaver in Massachusetts a few decades ago. And what has happened there, within 3 years, it went from the trappers actually handling the problem beavers, keeping them in check. Obviously, the fur market had a little bit to do with that. Beavers were worth a little more at that time. But you would still have, even to this day, I got an email from somebody from Oregon, and he said, I need you to set me up with some Duke 550 since they just outlawed beaver trapping. I'm not going to be able to trap beaver. I'm going to trap something else. But the Massachusetts stuff, you look at that, they outlawed it. It was not a problem at the state level with anything costing taxpayers money. And within, I think it was 3 years, it quickly turned into like a $65 million taxpayer problem, from where beavers are damming up roads are washing out, they're cutting trees down over telephone wires, electric poles, electric wires, things of that nature. So, yeah, I don't really, you know me pretty good. I don't care what anybody thinks. I don't care what they think in our community. I'm going to always have my opinions. I can see where they're coming from. I don't think a lot of trappers can get to that point where I can see where they're coming from. I can see it's a cruel kindness to catch an animal, but in the overall conservation aspect of animals and animal diseases and everything, we do need to take out that surplus because you have a carrying capacity of the land and all that. And I don't want to get too technical, but I do try and put myself in their shoes. Well, what's making them emotional in this process? And I can see where they're coming from. And it's truly our job for being on the other side. We have to educate as many people. I had Cuz Strickland on as our initial guest, and he had talked about the 10%, and then the 80%. We need to educate that 80% when it does become a referendum or an addendum or something to a bill and we are voting on it as a public, we are able to have that information to them. They're like, no, trapping's not that bad. That's actually good because it's going to save us money and things in the long run. Does that make sense? And do you see where I'm coming from that mindset?
I think you bring up a great point. Years ago, the strategy whenever I started trapping in the 90s was to keep a low profile and not attract attention. Then hopefully the anti-groups would not introduce legislation, stuff like that. But really that's done the total opposite of what we needed to do, because it's decreased relevancy as trappers to where most of the general public doesn't even know trapping still exists in the United States. And there's been a lot of surveys that have shown that. And they actually tried one in the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies. Tried it a few years ago to do a survey, and they couldn't find enough people that could answer the questions that had sufficient knowledge to even answer what their opinions of trapping were, because nobody thought it even existed anymore. So
Yeah.
get to that, certainly in a place like Massachusetts, where it's already a small state and probably not a whole lot of trappers. You know, probably most of the folks live around Boston and some of the bigger cities that probably don't partake in outdoor sports and a lot of the traditional means and methods. And
Yeah.
it's real easy to go ahead and say, yeah, we don't need this. And and unfortunately, there was Duddy Afwa did that one too. I think it was 2 or 3 years after that ban happened, and I think that was in the early '90s that happened up
Yeah, it
there.
was in the
And,
90s.
and they found that the county highway departments went from having no expenses to manage beaver to actually spending tens of thousands of dollars per year each one doing that, on something that they actually had the service of trappers who not only were doing the service, but they were paying for a license to do so. So it's kind of almost like a double whammy on you. And of course now they're dealing with that, and it's the shame of it is those animals have to be managed, so they're just paying somebody to do it now. But regardless if it was going for the fur or the management, what's going on now, those animals are having to be harvested, and it's just now they go to a dumpster rather than having a useful purpose.
Yeah, which is in the whole grand scheme of animals in general and the renewable resource that they are. To me, that bothers me. I don't like that. I think that fur is one of the most luxurious renewable resources that we have, and none of us would be here today if our ancestors had the same philosophy or the same thought processes that a majority or a large majority of people actually have. And I think personally, I think it's education, and and you guys and girls and everybody that's affiliated with the FDA. I know you're doing a great job. Your marketing materials are fantastic, and that helps out in this process as we do move forward. But it does, like you said earlier, you're finding out 8 o'clock at night for a 6 a.m. you know bill on the floor, and how are you supposed to combat that moving forward? That's a hard scenario to be thrust into, and try and make a difference.
Yeah, and in Oregon they had that latest bill on the beavers. I mean, those guys, there's a coalition work with out there, and they were all on it. The Oregon trappers were on this long before we were even explored. We're solitary a little bit out there. It they have some crazy bills that come up in Oregon, and we've been involved in a lot of, not all of them trapping too. We're as sportsmen's groups, we need to band together because it might be trapping today or hound hunting tomorrow. I know apparently what I've been told, there's now started to be some issue hunting out there too. And so where does it stop? It's never going to stop as long as we're doing anything we're doing because another group doesn't like it. But we can't be trying to do all this on our own. We have to be, the trappers have to work together with the deer folks, the turkey folks, the quail and the pheasant, the ducks, and that's the way we're going to make headway. And we saw that in Colorado this past year. They had a very aggressive, I guess, it was a ballot initiative that they wanted to ban harvest of all cats, lions, bobcats. They even threw lynx in there, which was pretty deceptive because you're not allowed to harvest them in the United States anyway, or the lower 48 was there to protect these. And in some deception like that, but but Dan Gates, who's on the board of the FTA, he's actually been nominated for vice president this year, and he mobilized a whole group of folks. He has a great deal of insight how to handle a lot of those situations, and him and the Colorado Wildlife Management got together. They really pulled together a huge group of constituents from all walks of life. And he had mentioned that, a vast amount of the funding needed to fight that. That was a bill that people realized how big of a victory that was, because this was a presidential election year. So, and meantime, airtime, like that, advertising was at a premium. And, I think he said it was somewhere around 6 times what it normally would be any other year, because it was a presidential year. All that stuff was more expensive. And they had raised over $1 million that they were able to use to fight that. And basically provide with model if we need to start doing this in the future. One thing we're really proud of, I can't take credit for it, but I will definitely give credit where credit is due. John Daniel with the NTA and Dave Hastings, who's the past president of the FTA, really saw the importance of the organization to work together, and really brought both organizations together. We have a really great working relationship now, and the new NTA president, Rusty Kimmer, and myself are, working together, and really there's so few to do a lot of the work that we need each other, complement each other, and everybody has strengths and weaknesses, and where we have strength, where they have weaknesses, we have strengths, and we all get on, and we're going to be most effective. And that's another maybe limitation we had in the past that we really not overcome, but it's nice to see us overcoming out of.
No, that's fantastic. And moving forward, I know I appreciate it. I know there's a lot of people that will see this that appreciate it. I know there's people that won't see this that appreciate all of the efforts and diligence that you guys and girls at the FTA and the NTA and everybody else that is out there fighting for our right to continue this tradition. And it's each and every one of our jobs as trappers to put that best foot forward, to put a good face to trapping, and show the viability of the I don't call it a sport, the viability of the tradition. To me, it's not a sport. It's a lifestyle. It's getting out there. It's one-on-one with nature. It's all of those different things that go into providing a structure for the tradition to carry on. And you guys are doing a great job, and I definitely am there for any time you need any help from me. Anything I can do, I will definitely be a part of that. Moving on, I got some questions I wanted to ask you. I wanted to ask you, because you have been doing this for quite a while, but
Right.
what's the hardest lesson that you've learned in the woods?
Oh, undoubtedly, it's patience.
Ding, ding, ding. That's been literally the answer every time. But I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's been the answer every time.
Yep, I remember back. Actually, it was my first deer I ever got. I started, of course, growing up in Pennsylvania. Really couldn't go out till you were 12 back then. And first year is actually my dad. He had open heart surgery just before the season, and he couldn't hunt, but I was always into archery hunting, or just archery, shooting my bow. And so he took me out first day of the season. He couldn't go, but he gave me his bow, and I was using that. I missed my first deer probably by 8 o'clock in the morning. Nice 7 point, and then didn't see anything else. Never had a chance. Then the next year I went out first morning, and probably by 7 o'clock I had my first deer with a bow, and I was 13 years old. And it's like, oh, this is easy. And then I never got another one till I think I was 18 or 19 when I got to college.
I think you might be my long lost brother. I shot my first deer ever with a bow, And I didn't get my first buck, and it was literally like a little spike with like 2 3 inch horns.
Yep.
I was actually a freshman in college or a sophomore in college. So yeah, I wasn't very successful at the beginning. So I feel your pain there with that.
Yep. And that was back when there were tons of deer in Pennsylvania.
Everywhere.
I would go in the gym. I remember going into phys ed. Of course, we always had the first day off.
Yep.
You'd go in the phys ed the next day, and the gym teacher's like, "Okay, who all got their bucks yesterday?" And everybody'd be raising their hand. They're like, "Yeah, I saw 47. I saw 60
Yeah.
some." I was like, "I didn't see any."
You were like me over in the corner with your helmet on. I can feel your pain, man. And you know what? To this day in Pennsylvania, we still get the first day of buck season, but it's different because the season opens on Saturday now, but they still give Monday off in most or all of the school district. It's kind of odd, but you being from Pennsylvania, you know how big of a tradition that was.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, up until a few years ago, I still went up there every year to hunt. Yeah, once I had some kids, then that got a little harder to do.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to go very far, Alabama. You got quite a few whitetail yourself.
Oh, like I said, I could go up. I'd like to shoot a couple out of the garden right now.
Yeah, and they're eating all your food. They're as bad as the rabbits and stuff, I'm sure. Another thing, what would be like a good piece of old school wisdom that you could give somebody watching this? What's some wisdom that might help them in their outdoor pursuits or their outdoor lifestyle?
Oh gosh, if you like the bow hunt or any other kind of hunting, or something even that's helped me a lot as a wildlife biologist, where I don't think I touched it. I've been a wildlife biologist the last 26 years, but what's made me a better biologist and a hunter was the fact that I learned to trap early.
Yeah.
And we know how it is. You have to know the location where those critters are going to be. I mean, if you're trapping canines, you're looking at a 40-acre field and you're making them stand in a 1.5 by 1.5 inch spot and set that trap off. And even as a wildlife biologist going out there doing everything I look at, you just can't, once you're a trapper, you think of everything different. And anything I would do out in the field, whenever I'd be doing any of our research, whatever, I'd be looking at it from a trapper standpoint. And boy, I just feel it made me so much better of a biologist whenever I was doing all that. And so, yeah, learn to trap.
I absolutely am 100% in the same mindset. I will put up any trapper in the country against any deer hunter that's never trapped. And I guarantee you, or pretty much almost, if not 100% of the time, that trapper is going to have more wisdom. And it's not only that, I think people don't recognize the value of being a trapper where you're looking at sign completely different than most all other outdoorsmen, to where it does make you a better deer hunter. It does make you a better turkey hunter. I think it even makes you a better fisherman. I mean, it carries over in a lot of aspects of your life where, I mean, we all get into, I know I do, I get into that mindset where, if I'm looking at a patch of ground trying to, what would Jeremiah Johnson or whatever look at this? And, you kind of take a step back in time, and trapping allows you to do that. Hunting does too, don't get me wrong, and fishing as well. But as a trapper, I think you hit the nail on the head. You're going to progressively be a better outdoorsman from just the knowledge you gain while you're out there doing your stuff in the field.
Absolutely. Especially, that's what a lot of us say. If you're a bow hunter, it's all the same stuff. Getting in the right spot, you gotta know the why. And that's another, I think, a really good thing just in general for everybody is always know the why of why you're doing something or what you're doing.
No.
Because that'll really help you get to the end. If you don't know why you're doing it, it's hard to describe a goal or set a goal or any of that. So,
Absolutely. And I actually was going to bring up you being a life biologist and the stuff that you've done. The question I wanted to ask you was, what is your favorite thing that you've done as a wildlife biologist as far as a study or something of that nature that you could share with the audience that maybe is a little different than what we would normally think it would be? Like, give us, you can give us a couple examples, but give us something that really just resonated with you and just was like, you know what? I like this. This is I really enjoy doing what I do, that type of thing.
So I'm actually an oddball when it comes to trapping and what I do. I'm actually an endangered species biologist, specializing in freshwater mussels. So
Nice.
I spend a lot of time on the bottom of rivers and streams. And I remember the very first time I'd ever done that. Of course, when I moved away from Pennsylvania, I moved to Tennessee to go to graduate school. And I went out to the Clinch River in Northeast Tennessee, which is one of the most biodiverse rivers in all of North America. Just absolutely beautiful. And we were there in the breeding time for one of the federally endangered species. And looked down there and they're all open on the bottom and they kind of have this blue hue to them underwater. And it was just the most beautiful thing to see that. You're in these little riffles and there's just tens of millions of mussels. I mean, that was such a thick population in there. But yeah, other things like some great memories. I keep thinking I need to write a book because I was thinking that today as I was riding down. I stayed in Illinois last night. I was coming home from the convention and I've had a unfavorable encounter with a water moccasin. I've been diving in the river looking for mussels, and I've laid on about a 9 foot gator unsuspectingly. Nice. So I've had a lot of neat things like that happen. But one of the other cool things was probably about 2010 or 2011, maybe somewhere in that time frame. We rediscovered what was thought to be an endangered species, and hadn't been seen since 1958. We picked one up there in the river, and then we went out and actually did a major survey of the river and found it to be the second or third most abundant species in the river.
Interesting.
Water. And of course, some genetics work, some research. We found it was the same thing as another species that was listed, and because of that, we pretty much have expanded to a new river, and it was a threatened species that it matched up with, and we're hopefully going to be delisting that species sometime soon. So
that's pretty cool.
There's not a whole lot of species that have been delisted, and of course, the kind of took away our rediscovery of an extinct species because we found out that extinct species was actually the same thing as another species. But that happens a lot. That's kind of one of the things with research. The more you do, the more you put the connections together and find out more. And it's a huge world, and we don't know a fraction of everything we think we know.
No, and it's a really awesome, I'd say, gig that you have. What a cool gig to be able to be out there and doing something different like that on a daily basis. And you got those memories of laying on a 9 foot gator and putting your hand in a water moccasin. That'll always keep you up at night, I'm sure.
Yeah, the moccasin, that was a fun one because I got bit. I was just south of Atlanta, and it bit me in the lower leg. I knew what happened. As soon as it happened, I screamed like a girl. And not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, I would too.
I yelled for everybody to get out of the water, and as I was trying to get out, it bit me a second time.
Oh, man.
And luckily, they were either two dry bites, but the first thing my father-in-law said after he heard about it was, well, he said, "Did the snake die?" And wondering if it died from biting me.
Yeah, he got the poison from you.
But you do get to go to the front of the line at the hospital whenever you go in.
When you go out with a snake bite, yeah. That's pretty interesting. That's pretty cool. I'm going to hit you here with the Fast Five. We're trying to do something to, learn about people. Obviously, I really appreciate you giving us your time. And this is the Fast Five. No need to elaborate. One word answers if you can, but we're going to start it off. When you're trapping, what is your favorite go-to set?
Flat set.
Flat set. Very nice. We've all done this. If you've done it once, you've done 100 times probably, especially the more time you spend out there. When you snap a trap on your fingers, what comes to your mind?
Crap, that was a really nice bedded trap.
Yeah, exactly. Favorite animal to go after?
Red fox.
Red
Red
fox.
fox.
Your go-to bait. This doesn't have to be something on the market or whatever, but if you could only use one thing to trap with the rest of your trapping days, what would you use for a bait?
Well, I hate to endorse anybody, but it's just worked for me for so long. Rusty Johnson's Lucky.
There you go. Rusty Johnson, plug to him.
For years.
Yeah, Rusty makes a good product. Yeah, you'd be hard pressed, and me being a lure and bait maker, I can say this: you'd be hard pressed to find anybody's lure and bait on the market that won't work for you when you're out in the field. It's all going to work for you, and it's about personal relationships and having people try your stuff and falling in love with it, like you just did Rusty's stuff. So
yep,
that's a positive.
I totally agree with you. I think if there's a reputable lure and bait maker out there, their stuff will work.
Absolutely. And then the last one, what would you consider to be the hardest animal to trap?
Boy, that's a good one. I don't catch many skunks.
Okay. Well, is it not?
But I intentionally try not to.
Yeah.
But boy, I don't know. I don't know. I think all of them I don't have too much of a problem with, given the right situations. I think.
No, we're just going to go with skunk. They're ornery. The hardest animal to catch is a skunk. That's what we're going to go with.
We don't have a whole lot of them, so
they're some places there's pockets of them. I wish you did have a lot of them now. The way they sold $70 average on the market.
That was pretty amazing.
I mean, did that fly around the internet in a day?
Oh, it sure did. It still is. It keeps.
I still see posts. I'm going to target skunks this year. The problem is they're going to send 20,000 of them up there, and they're going to average about $4 probably because they flood the market. But at least we had a bright spot from the first sale.
We had a good discussion on that yesterday. That there's a lot of that the market goes up and down, and every few years there's something that surprises you. We've had the beaver the last few years with the hat market. The skunks this year. Who knows what it'll be next year?
Exactly. Hopefully it's more things. It's really tough right now, as you're well aware. We've all had that conversation. It's pretty tough when you're, three main driving forces are muskrat, raccoon, and coyote, and every one of them is really the cost of production is actually higher than what you can get for it on the market. And that doesn't bode well for the fur market, but we're going to persevere. I appreciate you and everything that you do. I don't think people realize how much effort and time that not only yourself, but your organization, the people around you, your team, I don't think they realize everything that you do to help the tradition and help us move that forward. And I appreciate you, and I'm proud to call you my friend, and I'm glad to have you on here. And I look forward to the next time I get to see you on down the road.
Well, thanks for having me, and right back at you, Alan. You're just a great ambassador for this industry and for just trapping in general. And I think it's obvious. I always use you as an example whenever anybody talks about anything, because you go to NWTF and man, the room is full. People are interested.
We're trying to move that needle.
Yep.
But have a safe trip the rest of the way. I appreciate you pulling over and giving us your time. And I'm sure we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks a lot, Alan.
Appreciate you, buddy. That's the end of the trap line today. We appreciate you being a part of it. I would definitely want to thank Jason for coming on and giving us his time on his drive home. He's probably tired. He spent probably a full year in that whole process of helping out with the organization's rendezvous, which was a fantastic event. And it's just something that we all can put a better foot forward and continue to promote trapping in a positive light. with that being said, we hope to see you somewhere down the line.